Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's webcast for Interrel Consulting. My name is Carol Krajewski, and I am a principal consultant with Interrel. And I'm happy to share some information about Interrel and then a whole lot more information about profitability and cost management. So let's go ahead and get started. First, a little bit about Interrel. And our goal is really to have very strong collaborative connections with our clients. We like to partner with our clients and make sure that they're getting the most out of their investment, the most that they can out of their data analytics and improve their business performance. And of course, our mission is to leave the world a smarter place than we found it, which this webcast is certainly a part of that, but you'll also see that we have books and we have videos. So we truly believe in sharing our knowledge with everybody. Now, as we go through today, should you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat section, and I'll try and get to them as quickly as I can. So at Interrel, we're all about relationships, and really our brand name is based on the whole idea of interrelationships. So we're just bringing people and really in this case, EPM together. We are the Oracle Analytics Partner of the Year. We're very excited about that. We have, as you see, some key partnerships here: Oracle Cloud Excellence Implementer, Oracle Platinum Partner, to name but a few. We are extremely experienced when it comes to the cloud and the EPM suite of products. We have a full service organization. We have, of course, service. We have our consultants. We have training. We have support. We have the press. We have videos. You name it, we've got it covered. We also have 6 Oracle ACE directors and ACEs. And as I mentioned, we have the best-selling books. And of course, we've won multiple awards. So Interrel is a great place to come when you're looking for some additional knowledge on Oracle EPM. So today, as I said, we're going to be talking about profitability and cost management. And so let's take a look at first at the fact that, of course, these slides are really just my opinion. Doesn't mean that they'll agree or even be the position of Oracle at all. Again, just my ideas here, and please don't reproduce this material without our permission. So what is PCM? Maybe you're a little bit curious. Maybe you've heard about it. Let's find out. Profitability and cost management, and it used to be PCMCS, and as you'll find out in a little while, why the CS or cloud service part is really no longer true. So now it's going to be profitability and cost management, or just PCM. And really a couple of questions, or I should say a few questions you want to be asking yourself as you think about PCM. Are you currently running allocations? Is it really an easy process? A lot of customers that I talk to and I've worked with, it's torture running allocations. It's absolute torture. And I will tell you that if you use the on-prem product, there are vast improvements in the cloud that you will want to take advantage of. PCM, whether you use it on-prem or in the cloud, does away with the whole idea of the black box. You certainly get the ability to trace and understand your allocations. It is not manually intensive. So if you're answering a lot of these questions, yeah, it is, gosh, it takes forever to do allocations. And once we're done, I can't really, people come to me and say, why was this allocated? And then that takes a whole nother process to figure all that out. PCM is going to alleviate the questions, the pain, the suffering, and it is truly an end user tool. So the other question that PCM can answer for you, and I feel like a lot of times this is the one that sort of gets left in the dust. A lot of people focus on the cost management part, the allocation part, but they don't necessarily realize that we can also tell you if you're profitable. Do you ever work with someone, or maybe you're at a company where you think, oh, this is our largest customer, I have to take the best care of them, they generate the most profit, just because they're the biggest? How much money are you really spending to make that customer happy? And maybe if you looked at the profitability, you would see that while that's your biggest customer, it's also costing you the most money, and it's the least profitable. So profitability, what percentage of my customers, products, whatever it might be, is driving the most profitability for my organization? Okay, which ones can I maybe do away with even? Maybe I have some different areas of the business that I really need to look at more closely. So profitability can answer that question for you. By using this tool, you'll be able to answer those questions. And it won't take you a long time. It's all online and available. So profitability and cost management does support simple to complex allocations. Definitely a user-driven tool. This is a tool that is made for business users to work with and understand. It is not meant for a big technical team to come in at all. It's a very simple interface, and as a matter of fact, it's similar interface if you're already using some of the other cloud products. It's very similar to those other cloud products. So again, just going right with that cloud theme all the way through. Full transparency of allocation logic. So when people come and say, well, how come I got allocated this amount? Super easy to find that out and answer that question. Audit trails to satisfy everybody. No technicians required. And you get actionable intelligence as well. So who are your most profitable customers? What are your best products? Where should you be investing more time and money perhaps? Profitability and cost management can answer those questions for you. So the solution, okay, PCM, transparent, yes, definitely. We'll be able to see the who, the why, the what. It is in the cloud, no scripting required, fast response time. We can handle simple to complex allocations. And again, business focused. That's what's really key here is that business focus. So for maybe some of you on the call, you may not be aware that Oracle has kind of shifted away from the idea of cloud services to one solution. There is a new way that they're licensing their products. So it's not like now I have to, oh, I need financial close and I need PCM and I need planning. I have to buy all those licenses and they're all different processes. No, or services, I should say. No, now they're just processes, business processes, and they are all included inside that enterprise license. So you get planning, you get profitability, you get financial close, you get the narrative reporting, you get enterprise data management. So again, different way that Oracle is now selling the products. It's a set of processes instead of separate products. And you can definitely click on the link there, check it out. If you need to, please contact your Oracle sales rep and they'll get you on the right path. So business processes, what are we talking about? There have been some names as well, some name changes. So we used to say it's FCCS, that's CS again, that cloud service. It's gone. Now it's just financial consolidation and close. ARCS. It's just account reconciliation. By the way, all of this is in the enterprise license. Narrative reporting, that name didn't change at all. PCMCS, the product we're talking about today, is now known as Profitability and Cost Management. And TRCS, Tax Reporting, is the new name. So EDMCS is Enterprise Data Management. And it is all part of the Oracle EPM Enterprise. So what you see here is a big world of products and opportunity. And understand that there is a standard license and an enterprise license. So the things that you see in kind of in the red print, if you will, when it comes to like planning, we're talking about custom plan types, workforce, projects, CapEx. Those are some of the pre-built frameworks that you can use. Scenario modeling, financials. You can get that with the standard license. But in addition, with the enterprise license, you'll get freeform S-Base, the ability to do and use Groovy scripting to help you and improve performance overall. With the enterprise license, you'll get profitability and cost management. It is not part of the standard license. You'll get data management with your standard license, but it won't be the enterprise version. So it's kind of scaled down a little bit. When we talk about the financial close side of the house with your standard license, you'll get consolidation, account reconciliation, task management, supplemental data. With enterprise, you'll get advanced consolidation, transaction matching, and tax reporting. So that's just some of the difference. As always, you see that we support on the bottom multiple data sources to feed your EPM products. Up on the top is reporting opportunities. We, of course, have the Smart View in Excel products. We have what we call narrative reporting. We have management reports, opportunities for mobile as well, and also the XBRL reporting. All part of the EPM Enterprise, all part of your business processes that you're looking at and talking about today. So EPM Enterprise Cloud, now, today with even enterprise planning and things like that, you're limited, right? You can only have so many plan types, so many applications. If you want another application, well, that costs you more money. So now it's one price, and you can have as many applications as you need. And this is even, even for planning, it's kind of cool, right? Because otherwise you're trying to have security for workforce with your financials, and sometimes that's completely separate security, but you're trying to make it work by using weird roll-ups in your dimensions or something to make that work to save some money. Now, if you want another separate plan type for that or a separate application altogether, that's fine. There's no extra cost for that. Profitability and cost management, what I usually tell people, should be very focused. What I mean by that is don't try and have a PCM application that's going to be allocating your shared services with maybe your IT. If those are both huge allocation processes, have a completely separate application for each. You'll get better performance overall, security is easier, life's just better. Where before, there was a cost associated with that. You just didn't, willy-nilly throw that out there as, hey, have a completely separate application. What does it matter? Now, if you need a separate application, that's fine, and it's possible. So kind of, I feel like the handcuffs are off in a way. I feel like I've got a lot more freedom. I can do what I need to do. Take a look. 6 months down the road, you say, we need more planning. We need more narrative reporting applications. Go ahead, contact Oracle. They're there for you. And still included in the base price of your EPM Enterprise Cloud. So no additional cost. You want disaster recovery, maybe you want to go back to the 3 kind of tiers, if you will, where you have your development, you have your test, and then you have production. That is now possible. So lots of opportunities here with this new licensing approach. All the advanced premium features that we just kind of talked about, kind of those red additional features, they're included in the EPM Enterprise Cloud. So again, freeform planning, Groovy rules, disclosure management, all kinds of stuff that maybe in the past you thought, well, yeah, that'd be nice, but I just can't justify the cost. Okay, now you don't have to worry about that anymore. So what is the price? How much does it cost? This Carol chick, she keeps saying it's not expensive. Well, I don't know that I go quite that far, but take a look. So on the left, we have your standard rate, which is $250 per user per month, okay? What do you get with that? You get account reconciliation, you get your financial consolidation and close, narrative reporting, and planning, okay? I will tell you here that you are limited a little bit on your plan types and things like that, so kind of keep that in mind. Standard's fine, and it'll meet your needs if you're just kind of maybe getting your foot wet. Enterprise performance management, enterprise. Can we put enterprise in there maybe a third time? I feel like a third time would really, really solve the problem. $500 per user per month, but that's the granddaddy of them all. You get everything. You get account reconciliation, you get enterprise data management, financial consolidation and close, narrative reporting, planning with unlimited plan types, unlimited applications, profitability and cost management, tax reporting. So you kind of get it all. Or you can go the hosted employee route, $40 per employee per month, okay? So you got lots of different choices. And as I say, if this is all coming at you brand spanking new, you're like, what the heck? I never even heard about this. Boy, your Oracle rep should have been talking to you and explaining all this to you when it came out a couple of months ago. But if they haven't reached out to you, maybe you want to reach out to them and say, hey, I heard about all this great enterprise stuff. What is that? And how can I take advantage of that? How can I make that work for my organization? Okay, so PCM is built on the same EPM Cloud Framework. So if you're already in the cloud using planning or using financial close or any of the other cloud EPM products, it's going to feel very similar. It is the same set of tools, kind of that same user interface for the administrator and the end user. So that's what's really nice about it. Same file formats you're used to for building your dimensions, same tools available for loading your data, data management, smart view, that kind of thing. And the backup and automation, all the same. Under the covers, it is an ASO database, so it's a space under the covers. Again, you can use Smart View, FR, narrative reporting for analytics. Of course, we have dashboarding capabilities, and we'll go into some of that a little bit later on. No, right now, PCM does not have parity with the EPM Cloud platform in its entirety, but it's definitely getting there. Every month, it's getting closer and closer and closer, and eventually you'll just see it merge right in where it belongs. So who needs PCM anyway? Well, according to us, everyone does. Products, customers, channel, profitability, if you want to be doing any of that kind of analysis, management allocations, IT service costing and chargeback, we see that a lot. And there are some actually pre-built frameworks you can use for that. Shared services allocation. It's going to give you that transparency that you need to answer questions quickly about your allocations. How did they happen? What happened? Operational transfer pricing. This one is building quite a bit. It's moving around the revenues for tax advantage. So you can basically allocate the revenue and see what happens. Lots of what-ifing, taking advantage of different scenarios, things like that. So really, it's a great tool to help when it comes to allocations. What does PCM do really well? I think visibility is probably the biggest thing. So many people are used to allocations being that black box kind of approach where it's like, I have no idea what happened, quite honestly. And in order to answer your question, it's probably going to take me a week or more to get back to you, okay? Now we have pre-built analytics that let us see that. We're seeing culture of accountability kind of change. Well, hey, you know, this is what happened. These are the costs that were incurred. This is what happened. We allocated it this way for this reason. So we have visibility into what's going on. Now we also can answer the question quicker because we're looking at the right set of data. We're not trying to go into the general ledger and answer these questions where we didn't do the allocation in the first place, probably, okay? And of course, we have integration with the cloud. So that is just going to open up opportunity for us to do data visualizations and other work from reporting, S-based cubes, that kind of thing. Lots of opportunity there for us. Business ownership. Business is going to own this tool. It is definitely built for users to come in, build their own allocations. If they want to play with what-if scenarios, that's what this tool is really all about. And I'll show you some of that when we get into a little further along in this presentation. Transparency. There is a traceability ability. There's a report in here for traceability. There's also the rule balancing report where you can see the dollars in, the dollars out, what's happening step by step as you walk through the process. So PCM does this very well. So let's take a look at the user interface. Again, it looks very familiar if you've used any of the cloud products. You have the home page, you have the clusters there with the cards that you can get into. You, of course, have, you know, the hamburger or pancake in the upper left corner and all of our recent favorites, announcements, and things like that, just like we did before. So with PCM, you have fewer cards because you don't have quite as much going on as you do in some of the other tools. But what we do have is we have our dashboards to take a look at some key statistics and maybe even some KPIs if we decide to set that up. Intelligence is going to let us do some reporting, reports as well, I should say querying of the system. Application is for the administrator, so users would not necessarily be getting into the application. Tools are where they're going to go to run some of their rules and that kind of thing. And of course, always the academy is available as well. So we go to what I like to call the hamburger in the upper left corner, and you are going to use your hamburger quite a bit here because, again, you can get to all of your Navigator menus and choices that you need, in particular things like, oops, I did not mean to do that, so sorry. In particular, the rules and building of the rules is done here from the administrator menu. So we are going to be accessing that from the hamburger or our administrator. If we are an administrator, we could see the card on our home page. So the hamburger in the upper left corner, just like all the other cloud products. Security is set up at 2 different levels for PCM. So of course, access control, which basically says you can come into this particular application. You will then be given one of 4 predefined roles, and we'll go into a little bit more detail about what those are and what those mean. So basically, you can come into the application and you can do something, and we'll talk about what that something is in just a moment. You can also control access to the data through data grants and grouping of those groups together with data grants. So you can say that this group can get to all the data for the East Coast, this group can get to all the data for the West Coast. I look at this, if you're familiar with SBase and kind of security filters, similar to that. That's what data grants translate for me is into SBase filtering a little bit. We're just going to secure the data that users can get to. So how security works is basically in my services, you're going to come in and add your users just like you do for any other EPM cloud product. The service administrator is the person or persons, usually it's more than one, you always want to back up, that's going to define and manage your users, create, delete applications. Power users, now this is probably where most of your business users are actually going to be assigned this role, because these are the folks that can actually define and execute the rules. So they can do both of those things. Notice that a regular user can come in and view a rule, but they can't run a rule, they can't edit a rule. Only power users have the ability, yes, they can also load up data, they can change metadata, they have that power, they're a power user. So they kind of own the system in a way. Think of it that way, they own the system. It's their system, they're in control. Users can come in and build some reports and other analytics, a little bit here and there. They cannot build or change any rules, however. Then there's this 4th role, and this last person really comes in and looks at dashboards, looks at some of the reporting, but really doesn't even edit rules, has nothing to do with the rules whatsoever, is really more just interested in the analytics part of PCM. So let's take a look now at rules. How do we build rules? PCM is all about rules, right? That's what it really comes down to. We build these things called rules that define how the allocations will occur. Same steps every single time. First thing we're going to do is create POVs, a point of view. Or if one already exists for us, we could use an existing POV. A POV is normally a year, a scenario, maybe a period, a version, that kind of thing. That's what a POV is for us. Once we have our POV either created or selected, at that point in time, we're going to create a rule set, or if a rule set already exists, we'll add a rule to an existing rule set. But all of the rules exist inside of rule sets, and I'll explain a little bit later about why that's so important. Then we're going to add descriptions. Now, a lot of us don't like to add descriptions. Maybe we're not really good at it. This tool takes those descriptions and puts them out in all kinds of system reporting that help us audit what's happening, what rule ran, why did it run. So descriptions here are super helpful down the road. So I always advise people, make sure you put a description in. You will see it again down the road if you do. Next thing you're going to do is the source. Where's the data sitting right now that you want to allocate? Then you're going to define a destination. Where do you want that data to go? The driver. How do you want that data to get there? So we'll talk about what drivers we have available. Do you want the source data to get cleared, or do you want a completely different offset? So you'll define, if you want a different offset, what that is. And then the idea of rule context is to help you with development. If you're going to use the same driver for multiple rules, you can set that as a default value. So rule context, global context, those are all things to help you with development. Once your rule is built, you execute the rule, and the allocation takes place. So point of view, super important. You have to have at least one point of view dimension when you build your application. So normally it's about 4 because you usually have your year, your period, your scenario, your version, but you don't have to go that crazy if you don't want to. It just depends. Do you allocate annually? Do you allocate monthly? How do you do it, right? That will probably help you drive what you have as your point of view. The idea here is that you're supporting the ability to have different drivers or assumptions across perhaps different periods, different years. Notice what if. So as I say, lots of opportunities here to create some what if scenarios. And hey, what if I use this driver versus this driver? What's my allocation look like? Is it more accurate? Is that the road I should go down? You can always go back and view allocations based on different time periods, okay? Because POVs are so important, we have to create a lot of them. And, you know, so you finish a year, now you have to create the next 12 months. Good news, you can copy them and just change out the members. You can copy your source and your destination. You can copy all of your rules, or you can copy none of your rules. You can copy your data over. So this really makes life very easy for, oh, I want my budget. Now I want to run those same rules for actual, but maybe I'm just going to change out a couple members. It's super easy to copy the budget rules over to actual, and then we'll talk about a rule editor page where we can go in and just swap out members. So copying your POV, the rules, think of the POV as like a big container that holds all of the rules. So when you pick that POV, all the rules, the rule sets you build, they're inside that POV. So if you want to, as I say, create some for budget, and then you're like, these are really great, I'm going to run them for actual too. You can just copy them over to the actual POV and run the same set of rules, or as I say, change them slightly. So you have an opportunity here to copy the rules, the data. You can decide what it is you want to copy over. And as you say, so here is your source, POV on the left, and then basically your destinations here on the right. And then you can decide if you want the rules to get copied, if you want the input data. We're going to talk about model views in a little bit, but that's like a slice. You can say, I only want this slice of data or this particular slice, which includes these rules, to come over and get copied. POV status, there are 3 statuses, which, you know, I keep trying to come up with a good reason for why 3 are needed. But anyway, because I normally leave mine in draft. I shouldn't say that. I will change it to archived once, you know, like when it's really old and I only want it available maybe for reporting, things like that. Then I might change it to archived. Keep in mind that once you change the status of a POV, you can no longer build rules off of it. Draft is the only status that allows you to build rules. So make sure that if you change it to published or archived, you're kind of done with that POV, and it's really just hanging around to allow some reporting. That's why it's there. Global context. So you're going to build a whole series of rules, and it's all for, I don't know, let's say it's all for shared services. So you're going to allocate everything for a particular series of departments, let's say. So when it rolls up to shared services parent, you could set that as a global context for all the rules, and then it would get applied to all the rules that you built in that particular series. So it's up to you if you decide to use a global context. Again, it just reduces the amount of selections you have to make when you're building your rules, and it can speed up development, but it does apply to all rules by default. You can always turn it off as an option, so it's applied by default, but you can still say, I don't want the global context for this particular series of rules, rule set, or rules that I'm building. So why rule sets? Because we want our rules grouped together. It really does improve efficiency, and if you think about it, you might need to run rule set 1 to generate your drivers that you'll then use for rule set 2. So it just helps with the order that you're executing your rules, and it just helps you organize your rules. I'm going to put all my shared services rules in this particular rule set. I'm going to put all my IT rules in this rule set. So it just gives you a way to just organize your rules and run your rules. You can run the entire set, or you can run one rule at a time, your choice. So to create a rule set, you're going to navigate to the administer using your hamburger. You're going to navigate to administer unless you have the administer card on, but I usually just go up to the hamburger. To the rules section, you're going to define a rule set name. So give it a meaningful name. I always tell people to try and name things as if you were leaving tomorrow. So if you walked out the door tomorrow, could someone else come in and look at your rule set and know what it was all about? The answer should be yes, absolutely they can. So always name things as if you're walking out the door tomorrow. You won the lottery, you're leaving. okay? But be nice to your people coming in behind you. So define a rule set name, include that description, super important. The sequence, what order do these need to execute in? A lot of times there is a very specific order that we need our rule sets to run in, so make sure that you do set the sequence if appropriate. While a rule set is under development, you may want to disable it so it doesn't accidentally get run. And then when you're ready, go ahead and enable it again. You can run your rule sets in serial, one at a time, in parallel, multiples running together, or you can run them iteratively with a certain number of iterations. Run this rule, 10 times because I want that answer 10 times out there. And again, you can use your global context or you can choose not to. So you first are going to create a rule set. Okay, and then down here you just have what the rules are inside the rule set. So when you want to create a new rule set, you can either click this green plus sign, or from the actions drop down, you can say new rule set. When you're ready, once you've defined your rule set, then you're going to come down, click the green plus sign, or from the actions menu, create a new rule. Rules, notice, are also sequenced within the rule set, so keep that in mind as well. Again, descriptions. So this is one of my favorite pieces of documentation that comes out of PCM. It just kind of does the documentation for you, quite honestly. It tells you the rule set name, the rule name, and by the way, these are actually hyperlinks. So if you're online looking at this after you run the report and you click on it, it will actually take you right to that rule and show you what's going on with it. It tells you what type of rule it is, the number that gets assigned at execution. It tells you, is it enabled? Did you use the context? What's its sequence number? And then look at that. There's that description that we said, hey, if you include it, you'll see it again later on, and that's where you'll see it. So this is where it's super helpful to go ahead, have good audit trails, good reporting, because you filled out the correct descriptions along the way. All right. So when you build a rule, it's just basically a series of tabs, and it starts with that all-important description, right? You're going to put a name in for your rule, and you're going to go ahead and assign it a sequence number, and then you're going to give it a description, and then you're going to click on the next tab, which is the source. So now you have to tell the system, where is the data, what intersection, where's that data sitting in my SBase cube that I want to allocate? And you're basically going to go ahead and for every dimension, and this is where if you use global context, you can have, 10 dimensions sitting here, or you can have 2. Because did you use your global context to take care of 8 of them? Or do you need to kind of go through and really kind of seriously handpick each and every single one? Because that's what you have to do. You now have to come in, click each of these dimensions. Down below, you're going to pick the members that you're going to base this on. If you're going to filter any of those dimensions, you can use UDAs or attributes to say, well, I'm going to take all my facilities expenses, but not any of the expenses that are tagged with a no attribute, okay? So then it's going to go through, and it always goes to level 0. Always goes to level 0 for the allocations. And it's going to look at all the accounts, let's say, that are facilities expenses. It's going to go ahead and allocate them all out, but if you put a filter on, it will not do that. So again, remember it's an ASO cube in the background. So it is dynamically calculating that particular intersection for you. Options, if you have a really, really ginormous allocation going on, you can actually split it into segments and you can run them in separate segmentation throughout the process. Once you've said, well, here's where the data is today, the destination tab is then where do you want that data to go? Where do you want the data to land after the allocation? So again, it's going to make some assumptions for you. It's going to say, hey, do you want to keep maybe your account the same as your source? Okay, same as my account dimension. Yes, I do want to do that. So that's what's happening here. By the way, you can, the text entry, if you know the members you want, you can type them in instead of, kind of clicking and adding the members that way. So you're going to allocate, and again, if you say total products, it's going to allocate to level 0 members. So keep that always in mind. And as you're designing and you're building the application, you want to be thinking about it's an allocation database. I need to structure it so that I can easily come in and pick a parent and know I'm allocating from or to the correct members, and maybe I need alternate roll-ups to accomplish that. So just kind of keep that in mind that you're allocating always to level 0. You're going to pick a parent and allocate down. Then we can do a driver basis if we want to. Notice that I could allocate evenly if I wanted to. That's a very rare occurrence, but it could happen. Most likely you're going to have some type of account that you're going to use as a driver. Now, while you may want to go ahead and create a member formula to calculate that driver on the fly, I can tell you that the performance with that is going to be a little bit slow. So you do have an ability when you're building out rules to have some of them be custom calculations. It's better to have the system, the PCM system, calculate your driver through that custom calculation instead of a member formula. So always kind of keep that in mind, that member formulas might slow the system down a bit. Instead, use a custom calculation. You can also upload allocation percentages to the system. You can populate your drivers that way and go ahead and have the system calculated. So the driver is, how am I going to allocate it? I'm going to base it on square feet, head count, units, revenue. What am I going to base it on? What kind of craziness am I going to come up with to allocate these dollars? And then a lot of times, most people will say, well, just clear out where I took the data from, right? Zero that out, put that to be 0. But sometimes you might want to define an alternate offset location. So you can go ahead and define, okay, don't zero out the source. Keep the dollars just like they are, and that's what will happen. Instead, I want all of the negative numbers, because that's what happens. It'll give you negative numbers. I want it to go to this particular intersection. And so you would have to define, if you set an alternate offset location, you would have to define the intersection of where you wanted those negative dollars to go. So it's an alternate offset from your source. If you don't want your source to take the negative dollars, accept those negative dollars, you would go ahead and define an alternate offset location. So for now here, we're just leaving it as the source. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, because this save icon, after you go through your entire rule, you put your description in, your source, your destination, your driver, you leave your offset, and then if you have any rule context, you can go ahead and set that up. And this save sometimes just seems so tiny and just really hard to see, and you might forget to click it. And it does kind of try and tell you, hey, you didn't save. Do you want to save? So this is your opportunity. Make sure that you do save. Know that the rule number will be assigned when you execute the rule for the very first time. At that point in time, it will get assigned. Our up to 5,000 rules is the max that we can go to. So it will go ahead and assign a rule number at that time. But notice again that we have a rule set name, we have a rule name, a type of rule, it is enabled, sequence 1. This one is using rule set context. If we were to click on that tab, we would see what that context is. So lots of things can help us with development, right, to speed things along. We can use global context. We can use rule context. We can also copy rules. And then we can just change a couple little things in the rule, or you'll see that we have a rule express editor, which really helps us with development. So it's very quick to copy a rule. Everything about it is the same. I'm just going to change the driver, let's say. Okay, so super easy to go ahead and copy that rule. So we can just copy from the actions menu. We can go ahead and copy that rule, make whatever changes we wanted, and we're done. Another really nice thing, like I said, is we can do what ifing, right? So I can compare my allocation side by side. This is a smart view of 2 allocations with 2 different drivers. So this on the left is an allocation based on square feet. Oh, okay. Same allocation, exact same allocation. I copied the rule. The only thing I changed was my driver in a different scenario as well. Okay. Now I can come in and I can say, oh, okay, so this is what it looks like when I do this. Because notice this was actual final and this is sandbox 1. So this is Smart View. This is basically the balancing report, which we'll talk about in Smart View. So this is really helpful. Sometimes when people are trying to decide what's the most accurate way, how do I do an accurate allocation? This might be a way to figure that out by doing some sandboxing or what ifing. Once you have your rules built, you're going to go ahead and you're going to run the rule. So you're going to navigate to the calculation screen. It's under Manage Calculations. Remember, everything, just same as in all EPM products, comes off that point of view. So first thing you're going to want to do is make sure, double check, is your point of view correct? If your point of view is correct, you're then ready to come on down and look at your processing options. Are you going to clear calculated data? What that means is before the rule runs, it will clear. Let's say that you're, a lot of times, especially when you're developing, you run the rule, you run the rule, you run the rule, you run it multiple times. And you may start to get some erroneous answers, right? Because you never cleared the data the first time through. By default, this box is checked. It's checked for a reason, for that very reason. If you're going to run that rule again, you want to come and say, I want to clear out that data that I was calculating before. Okay, I do want to execute my calculation. I could uncheck that box and only clear my data. Oops, I didn't mean to allocate that. Where's my undo button? Oh, there isn't one. Let me uncheck my execute calculation, but leave the clear calculated data checkbox checked. I don't need to optimize for reporting. And I'm just going to go ahead and run the rule, but it's only going to clear the data out. Okay, so it undoes my allocation, if you will. When I'm having some trouble, I can actually capture my Essbase debug script, so I can come in and check that box, and it's going to show me what Essbase is doing. Sometimes this is super helpful when you're developing rules and you want to, like, where is it pulling that data? Where does it think the data is? Because I can see that's not where the data is. So sometimes running the debug scripts can be super helpful. After you have all your processing options set, you're going to come on down the screen a little bit further, and you're going to take a look at your processing ranges. You can run all the rules, okay? Now, again, if you have a model, one model in the application, and that's it, so all you're doing is shared services. You don't have IT, you don't have anything else going on in there, no multi-purpose kind of application, you can certainly run all the rules, start to finish. Sometimes we have multiple purposes, and we cannot just run all the rules, okay, because it's really multiple models in one. Again, trying to save some money. We don't have to anymore, right? So specify rule set range. I can click this and say I want to run, and now this is where you're going to have to understand what sequence numbers have been assigned to rule sets. I want to run rule set 5 through rule set 15. I know what those are. Stop, though, go ahead and do that, but stop after rule set either name or rule name. So again, I can say run that, but hey, stop after you get to a particular point. I want to check something out, and then I'll continue on. I can run a single rule. So I have lots of, oops, so sorry. I have opportunities here to control how I calculate things, how I run things. So again, I can run all the rules, a range of rules, specific rule if I want to. I can clear out the data. So this navigation to Calculation Manager has more than just, hey, I'm running a rule to do an allocation. You can do more than that. So custom calculations, I mentioned it briefly before. This is a better route than putting a member formula in your ASO database and then basing an allocation on that. Because what happens with that is you actually have to figure, the system has to go through and calculate that member first and then run the rule. So it's slowing down the process a little bit. It's not as efficient as you coming in, and instead of doing an allocation, you can say, I want to create a custom calculation. And then PCM basically calculates that once, that driver, whatever it is, and it's faster than if you put that particular member formula in your ASO database itself. So you can come in and build a formula here inside as one of the rules. And then you can actually include that as like the first rule in your rule set. There's your driver. All the other rules in the rule set can then reference that particular calculated member that you just calculated on the fly in your rule set. This is probably one of the coolest tools, one of the new cool tools, and it's been around for a while, but it's new to me in the sense that it was never an on-prem. And it is the ability to kind of change multiple rules at one time. You need to change your driver for 500 rules. Torture, right? If I have to go to that screen and click, 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 this screen is going to let us come in and it's going to let us change multiple members at one time. I can choose all the rules. I can choose particular rules. I can search for rules. I can change all the rules in a particular rule set. I can go ahead and add members, replace members. All of a sudden, oh, hey, add this new driver in and put it in these following rule sets. Oh my gosh, that's torture the old way. Trust me, it's torture. So this way I can come in and say, I'm going to replace this particular member in the following rule sets. Boom, I'm done in a matter of minutes. It's super easy. So Rules Express editing, great idea and super helpful. In addition to the Rules Express editing, next to it is this idea of a rules outline. And this just kind of displays your rules in a hierarchical structure. So it allows you to find rule sets in a hierarchy fairly quickly. You might wonder, like, what's in here? I don't remember. What is this, all about? I don't remember exactly what's happening in here. And you can come in and find the rules and the rule sets. And here again, you can edit the names, the descriptions, the sequence values. So you have an opportunity. It's yet another tool to let you quickly change things about the rules. Allocations change all the time. Businesses change all the time. End users need to be able to come in here and quickly make changes. And with the Rules Express editing and the rules outline, that is just a huge possibility. Very easy to do. Okay, this question gets asked a lot, right? Did it work? Did it work? I went through all that trouble. I built all my rules. Did it work? How about checking out the job library? You'll know right away if it worked. What you want to see is success. If you see success, it worked. Success with warnings, don't you like that? What it's saying is, I didn't allocate a thing. Good luck next time. Okay? And usually when you see success with warnings, it is because it either cannot find the data to allocate, or it just does not have a driver in there, so it doesn't know what to do. Sometimes data gets moved around in the underlying database, happens quite a bit. Rule that was working suddenly stops working. Oh, I forgot, I said that was a child of this member, and now that member got moved. It's no longer a child of that parent. Oh, I see what the problem is. So very quickly in the job library, what you want to see is success. You definitely don't want to see failure, and certainly that means it didn't work. But keep in mind, success with warnings is really just a little pat on the head. It didn't work. Okay? So don't get excited when you see success with warnings. That's not what we want to see. Debugging scripts, I talked about it briefly before. It's in your Manage Calculation screen. And as I say, this is an opportunity for you to come in. You're going to find them in your Application, File Explorer folder, and you can see here what the rules are actually doing. Now, this starts to get to be a little more programmer-ish, if you will. But with a little practice, you can read through and you can see, oh, it went to try and find my data in such and such a place, and I didn't load data there. So if you really get stuck, I tell people, if you really get stuck, like you really worked on that rule and you swear you have it right, this is sort of, for a lot of people, I say their last resort. Come here, run a debug script, and try and figure it out. Usually I can go in and very quickly with Smart View, I'll pull up the source data. I'm like, I check, yep, source data's there. I check my driver, my driver's missing. Okay, I fix that issue, I run my rule, life is good. But every once in a while I hit a situation where it's like, oh boy, I just don't understand, everything looks fine. I run a debug script and I can see, oh, I put this out of order, or I went to the wrong place, and I can figure out what's going on. So it's nice to have these debug scripts as an option to help you troubleshoot. PCM does a really, in my opinion, excellent job of reporting. It's sort of what I call self-reporting. It has program documentation that we saw a little bit earlier when we were talking about descriptions, and that's where you're going to get information about your rule sets, your rules. You're going to get the descriptions in there. So a lot of times, too, it's super helpful if when you're doing your descriptions, you include the driver that was used. Because people always say, why was this allocated to me? You had a head count. It says right here, I used head count, because you're looking at that program documentation. You can see the driver that was used. So you can very easily and quickly answer that question. You're looking at 5,000 different rules that ran. You're not going to certainly remember every single one, and someone asks you that, people ask those kinds of questions all the time when it comes to allocations. How did this get dumped in my department? Why do I always get picked on? Those kinds of questions. Dimension statistics, you're going to see things about number of dimension members, number of level 0 members, okay? These are important things to understand, especially when it comes to performance. We want to make sure that that underlying ASO database is optimized and that it's going to run very quickly and efficiently. And if we follow the PCM application design rules, it should. So what I always say to people is this is not a reporting database. You should not be keeping 10 years of allocation history in this database. That's what a reporting database is for. This is to keep at the very most last year and this year's. That's it, because maybe you want to do some comparison. But that's it. Don't be keeping more than that in your PCM application. You want it to run super fast. That's how you have it run super fast. So go ahead and just create a reporting database. Much easier to do that. Rule data validation, so you can see your source and your driver data for every single rule. So it's great to see that. If either the source data or driver data has not been selected, which that should never happen, you save the rule then without validating it, that portion of the report is obviously going to be blank for you. A very new report is the POV statistics, so you can see, how frequently are they being used? Do I need to keep 10 years worth of POVs? No, absolutely not. So you can get rid of some of those. Execution statistics as well. Again, a lot of this is about audit trails, who's running what are the rules really doing, how do I explain it? So these reports will help you answer questions about the PCM product and how it's working. Rules balancing and trace allocations, these are going to become very quickly two of your very favorite reports. This is how you get to start looking in and analyzing your data. Did it work? I got a success in my job library. Now what do I want to do? Now you want to come in and start doing your analysis. Now you want to see what's going on. I can do that through this tracing report. I can do it through the balancing report. I can go into Smart View. I can use financial reporting. I can use the analysis views that are inside of PCM. I can take a look at the profit curve that PCM generates. Lots of opportunity now that I ran my allocations and everything was successful and I saw it worked. I'm ready to start analyzing. So this is where model views can really help you so that you don't, again, you're running 5,000 rules. That's a lot of data to look at. All you're interested in are the operating expenses. What happened with that? So why don't you create a model view for just the different intersections of data, the different members that were involved in that particular rule. You can focus your attention on a very specific slice of the data using model views. It can really help you when you're looking at things like trace reporting, balancing reporting, any other reporting for that matter. So model views really just help you focus. Instead of trying to see all 5,000 rules at one time, you can see just a very specific slice of the data. Rule balancing report. This is my absolute favorite report. I love, after I run allocations, to come in here and see my numbers. I love to see my numbers. I want to see what happened. And so take a look. What do I see? First of all, I see that I had $15 million to allocate. And then I start seeing how that allocation, I see the ins, I see the outs, I see the changes happening. Do I have a remainder? Do I have a balance to allocate? As it's going through, the system is keeping track of everything for me. So I really love this report. And the other thing I love about it is, you see how these are blue here? They're hyperlinked. When you click on them, this report opens up in Smart View and lets you start drilling in and slicing and dicing your data. Okay, I'll try not to get super excited, but it's really the coolest thing since sliced bread. I'm telling you right now, it's really, really cool. So anyway, you can customize this with your model views. So this is going to be an opportunity for you to come in and you can pick a particular slice of the data, again, instead of looking at the entire database. So super helpful. And remember, the blue links are super cool. So you can view the input amount at no rule, which is basically the dollars coming in, allocations in and out, and you're looking for that almighty and important 0, or in this case, it's always less than a penny, okay? And if you select the model view, it's going to help you really focus. So the rule balancing columns, by default, they are all going to show when you first start out. You can certainly change that view if you want to. You can use this view drop-down menu, and you can say, I don't want to see, my adjustments in and out. Personally, those are some of my favorites. Or my allocation in and out, you might want to see that. So you can turn on, basically customize kind of your rule balancing view. I like to see everything, but again, it is a lot to look at. It is a lot of columns, so you can narrow your focus again. Everything balances, that's wonderful. And what you're going to start to see is, well, what do my numbers really look like? And as you can see here, it's like, oh, computer services is in the red. I thought that was our most profitable division. I didn't know that. So now you really start to see and analyze your data, and it helps you make some very informed decisions about your business. So that's where this tool is just super helpful. Smart View, if you're not used to Smart View, it is the Microsoft Office add-in that Oracle is using for their EPM suite. So you're able to do analysis, create highly formatted reports. A lot of ad hocing is done. I use Smart View considerably when I'm doing PCM, because I say I'm always checking where is the data sitting, where are my drivers, right? Making sure I know exactly where that data is before I try and build a rule. Maybe I'm not super familiar with the database, and if I'm not, that's a good way for me to figure out where that data is as I sit there and work through things. Most people are already, financial folks, super comfortable with Excel, so this is a great way. As I say, you click the blue link, it opens up in Smart View. You're in Excel, you can do further analysis. And so that's what this is basically. Clicking on the blue link, it's going to open up for you. And as I say, now you can start drilling in. You can start slicing and dicing the data any way you like. And sometimes it's kind of fun to drill in and see how it allocates down to level 0, because you're going to be up high here. You're going to want to drill in and start to see how that data looks and feels. So here's your input data at total entity, and then it allocates it down for you. And allocated to sales entities. In this case, we base it on the driver, square feet. So this is actually really nice when you think about it, because, here's the data you started with. Here's how it allocated. Here's who it got allocated to. Here's where it came from. And how did it get there? This is how it got there. And so you can actually put your own formulas in and double check. And I do this quite often because, seeing's really believing, right? So until I do the math myself, I can't believe the system really did it right, and it's just really kind of fun, which is sad, but so much fun. And allocated data out of the source entities, so you can take a look at that as well. This is, and the net change, of course, super important. It should be 0. So again, kind of the whole shoot and match right here, just by clicking on one of the blue links in your balancing report, it's going to open up in Smart View and let you do a ton of analysis on it, and your ending balance as well. And the driver, which I already talked about. Oh my goodness, okay. So a lot going in, the ins and outs. So I can remember working with one customer, and then they came to me and said, well, this is great, you did the allocation, thanks. But I need to make a journal entry out of that. Any way you can automate that process? Ugh, yikes, are you kidding me? This is a lot of work just to get here. Come on, get serious. So we used FDME to basically pull these entries out, create journal entries, and we fed it back to their EBS system. So yes, you can do that. You can definitely create some journal entries here, write it back to your general ledger if that's what you need to do. Definitely a possibility. Again, you can see the impact using Smart View and the balancing report. The no rule is always where your input, so that those are the dollars coming in. You always load to no rule. That's where it starts. And then rule 1, now again, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, right? Because rule 1, rule 2, rule 3, what the heck does that translate to? Keep in mind, your rule numbers don't get assigned until you execute. So right now, we cannot see what the name of that rule is. That's something that Oracle's working on. But to keep the way the system works, it can go across all scenarios, versions, years, et cetera, across all POVs. Once it starts assigning an alias to that, it really kind of gums up the works a little bit. So we'll talk about that some more in just a moment. Once we create the rest of the rules, so no rule is where we start, we can then start seeing the impact of every single rule. Once you're in SmartView, again, you can definitely leverage the S-based hierarchy, zoom in, zoom out, twist and turn, slice and dice, however you like to see that data. So the other thing that a lot of people is, so that's kind of the analytical approach in SmartView, slicing and dicing. It's to me, it makes perfect sense. But some people are more visual and less analytical. And so for them, it's super helpful to come in and play with the trace allocations. We can trace the allocations forward or back. So we can drill in to see where the dollars went. We can change the way this gets laid out. So some people prefer this to using the balancing report and the SmartView interface. I like this. This is really cool stuff too. You know, you can see I started here. This was the first rule that ran. It pushed it out to all these members. I can see, you know, how much they got. And if I click on this little arrow, it will continue to go out. The only thing is your screen's only so big. And so after a while, you truly just run out of room. Now, if you have a ginormous screen to see this on, it will probably really be cool. So traceability view, a couple things you can do to help yourself is, of course, you're going to pick your point of view, right? And if you have a model view, this is really where the model views are going to help you when you're coming in and talking about tracing, to narrow that scope so you're not trying to see too much data. That is certainly going to help. And then what do you want to trace it on? So sort of, again, like, are you pushing it out to your entities? You probably want to trace by that. Are you pushing it to your products? You probably want to trace that way. Departments, trace that. Do you want to show the alias recommended? Most people don't know the member names, right, in S-Base. Trace forward or back, your choice, depending where you are. Generations, how deep do you want to go? Do you want to go all the way down to generation 8, 9, 10? If that's how deep it goes, that's your choice. You can certainly do that, but you can set the number of dimensions in your traceability view. And then, as I say, it's just going to go ahead and it's going to show you I allocated 71 here, 29, and then, by the way, notice this rule 1 stopped, boom, right there. Rule 2 continued on to allocate to all these cost centers over here. So this allocation was done right here. This allocation continued on. Traceability, giving you that visual information you need when it comes to allocations. In addition, there's a whole lot of embedded analytics. So PCM comes with a lot of pre-built analysis views which are used for your dashboarding. You can set up KPIs. We've got profit curves you can set up. Queries that you can build. So again, you can filter on different pieces of the data, dashboards, financial reporting, the trace reports, the rule balancing report. There's all kinds of embedded analytics, so you shouldn't need to go outside the tool. A lot of people do, though. A lot of people will go outside and use that reporting tool I talked about, especially, you know, if you want to go back history-wise. So keep that in mind. So analysis views really are just a table. They're just a layer, you know, rows, columns kind of approach. They are the basis for your dashboards and your profit curves. They are accessed through the intelligence card, your analysis view tabs. So it's a great way to just come in and kind of take a look at what the data looks like and see it more in a table kind of view. And you can export it to Excel as well if you'd like. PCM queries, users can come in and create their own queries. You can use allocation rule sets and rules to help you build these queries. I find that super helpful. Again, sometimes when you're struggling with an allocation, coming in and turning it into a query can help you see, like, oh, the data's not where I thought it was, or, oh, that driver isn't where I thought it was. Okay, so you can launch the query from the online user interface. You can view the results in Excel, again, via SmartView. Sometimes you want to clear data. It's good to kind of take a look at what you're looking at, and then you can go ahead and know that you're clearing out the correct data. So to create a query under reporting, you're going to navigate to manage queries. You're going to select actions, create a query. Again, you have to at least be a power user to create queries. And again, enter descriptions, you know, kind of fill it out, answer the questions. It's a guided interface to building a query. And then go ahead and click finish, and you can launch or run your query. So it's a little bit different because you build your query here and you don't run it from here, okay? So you click finish, it saves kind of your query definition, And then you come back to manage queries, and underneath them, the actions menu, there's execute. And then this is where you can come and execute the query, and you can run the query. It's, again, going to open up in Excel and use SmartView. So I've already told you how much I love the blue links from the rule balancing screen. They go ahead and open up in SmartView and let you do all kinds of analysis. This is sort of, to me, like immediate gratification. Once I know the rule was successful, boom, I'm in this rule balancing report, and I'm in SmartView, and I'm checking it out. I'm drilling in. I'm seeing that it allocated properly. I'm putting my formulas in. I'm double checking the system, make sure it did everything correctly, and then I am happy. Dashboards are great when you just kind of want to know quickly, how are things going? What's happening? To me, these are not interactive dashboards. These are kind of just snapshots of what's happening at any point in time. They are based on the analysis views. So eventually, the goal is that these will be very much like the PCMCS dashboards are today. So they're a little bit more oomph, if you will. More options for building dashboards. Right now, it's a little bit limited on the dashboarding side. But as I say, so remember we talked earlier about parity with EPM. So that's coming. We're not quite there yet when it comes to dashboarding, but definitely a work in progress. KPIs, a lot of companies are interested in KPIs. You have to first, of course, identify what are your key performance indicators, how do you determine what they are, and then you can come in here and you can actually build out your key performance indicators. And I don't know if you caught it on the dashboards, but we can certainly start to show some of our super important, silver player or challenge, so we can start to take advantage of some of our KPIs and things like that when it comes to dashboarding. Profit curves are very helpful. They let you see the entire population at one time. They let you analyze profitability versus, as I say, I thought that customer was super profitable. Turns out they are not. In addition to seeing the cumulative profit curve, you can also take it deeper. So here you can see, we can see some additional details by product, by customer. We can focus on sales reps, territories. So lots of opportunities here for us to do additional analysis on our profit curves as well. So profitability and cost management dimensionality. As I say, this is a very specific database. It has some very specific rules when you're building out the application. This will create an ASO aggregate storage option database in SBase. Every database, of course, has an outline. That's the skeleton that helps us hold it all together. Database outline provides the data structure. We're used to that. Dimensions are hierarchical. That's what gives us that zoom in, zoom out, drilling in, drilling out capability. Data is definitely stored at dimensions. And remember, we're talking about level 0 allocations here. And while you can include calculations in your members, remember, it's a little bit quicker if you put it in a rule. So when we come in and we start talking about PCM applications, they're a little bit different than a planning application, just a regular old SBase application. They're very specific. There are 2 dimensions that will be created automatically. They're system dimensions, the balance dimension, which of course tracks the calculation, the dollars as it goes through, and your rule dimension, which keeps track of all the rules in the system. Then you have to define your POV dimensions. You need at least 1, and you can have a maximum of 4, okay? Those are the rules. Business dimensions are just how do you want to slice and dice that data? What do you need to do your allocation? Okay, that's what you want to focus on there. Attribute dimensions are very helpful to allow us to do deeper analysis, to let us filter members when we're doing allocations. Take advantage of your attribute dimensions. Make sure that you use them wisely. They play a very important role inside PCM. Again, analytics and helping us to filter our members. POV dimension, as I stated, you have to have at least 1. You can have up to 4 of them. And so as we look at our outline here, you can see, and now you can't look at it this way anymore. But you can see here we do have our rule dimension, okay, we have our balance dimension, again those are system dimensions, and then period, account, year, and in this case scenario are basically year, period, scenario, version. Okay, there we go, they do have the 4 set up. And again, these are kind of the normal 4 that you'll see quite often as being the POV members. Business dimensions, these are the dimensions truly that you're going to use to do your allocations and your reporting. The biggest tip here is to make sure you have a total or all member under the parent, because it will not let you allocate the parent. So it will not let me come in and set up a rule that says I'm going to allocate entity. It will let me allocate total entity. So do make sure that you include that total member under the dimension header member. Alternate hierarchies are super helpful, yes, for reporting, of course, but even more so for allocations. If I need to go ahead and split out a sales department versus a non-sales department, I can go ahead and I can create under one parent that exact split that I need for my allocation. So when you're building out your PCM, the best advice I can give you when you're building out your PCM application is you got to have your allocation hat on already. You have to kind of know, what are my allocations? What am I trying to do? Then, once you understand fully what that is, you're ready to sit down and start building out your dimensionality, because it's not about reporting. It is, but it really isn't. It's really about allowing you to build the rules quickly and efficiently, and then reporting will follow off of that, quite honestly. So system dimensions, again, are created when the application is created. You cannot touch them. You cannot do anything to them, okay? You can call them anything you like. If you don't like rule and balance, you're free to assign a different name to them, but really if you call them something other than rule and balance, no one in the PCM world will know what you're talking about. So it's really recommended that you just leave them called rule and balance and know that they serve a purpose and they have an important job. So try not to let them get you upset. A lot of people are like, well, I'm going to call that something else. Please don't. Please call it rule and please call it balance. Everyone will then know what you're talking about. When you go to load data to your rule dimension, it will be input, let me not use that word right now. It will be loaded to your no rule member. When you go to your balance dimension, it will be loaded to the input member. Those are the 2 members that are there to allow you to load data. Balance dimension, again, is going to keep track of the dollars that need to get allocated. It's going to be tracking those allocations throughout. You can see it in rule balancing and in reporting. You can see here we've got things like the net change, the adjustments in and out, allocations in and out, remainders. Again, the system uses these members as it's going through its allocation process. The rule dimension, you can have up to 5,000 rules, okay? To view the rule name, the only place you can see it is when you're in that user interface inside of PCM. You cannot see it in Smart View. You cannot really see it anywhere. It's coming as an enhancement that eventually you'll be able to see it in Smart View. But really, it's just to give us the greatest flexibility by not having that name kind of hanging on to a rule number. Otherwise, we have to have way more rules in order to accommodate that. Rule 1 is always my office expense allocation rule. Okay, so while it seems like it's very frustrating at first, that's where descriptions are really going to become your friend. Because while you know it only as rule 1, you can see that description in a whole lot of places, and that can help you out. Dimensions can be manually maintained in the simple user interface or the simplified user interface. You're going to navigate to the dimension management card. Again, you can use Excel to help you. What I like to do is first download the existing dimension, see how it's structured. Then I can go ahead, I'll add a few members in manually, download that. I can see the layout. That helps me get it set. I will tell you there is obviously very specific format that has to be followed. This is an ASO database. ASO S-based dimension building rules apply. What does that mean? You can't have formulas in a hierarchy unless that hierarchy is dynamic or multiple hierarchies enabled. ASO rules apply, okay? But you can edit member properties, even in Excel, and upload it. So using the simplified user interface, again, great for 1 or 2 changes. Otherwise, you're going to want to download it to Excel, do your work there, upload and build your dimensions that way. And yes, the process can be automated. So loading up data, we have 4 different methods. We have data management, which comes with our enterprise subscription. FDMEE does require separate licensing, S-Base native format, or SmartView Submit. So we're going to talk about data management, which comes with your subscription, is often referred to as FDMEE Lite. So it's not like the full-blown FDMEE if you're used to that, but it's a little bit lighter. It is an ETL tool that business users can use to load up both metadata and data. So again, this is a great tool because it gives you that visibility, kind of the audit trail situation. You have mapping capabilities. You can use cloud targets and sources, also file-based, which is important. If you use the FDMEE Lite version here as well, you do get drill through. So if you're in like your balancing report and you suddenly need to drill back through to the source, you have that ability. It's going to drill back to FDMEE for you. Fully automated with the EPM Automate. Again, comes with your EPM Cloud subscription. Again, stressing, where should you load data? You should load data in the no rule member of your rule dimension and into the input member of your balancing dimension. And then, of course, all the other dimensions at level 0 members. How do I get data out of PCM? Geez, we talked about a lot of options. Data management's one, SmartView, queries. Those are all ways that you can get data out of the system. So wrapping up now, do you need PCM? Because couldn't I just do that with S-Base? Well, sort of. You sort of could, but you don't get that traceability. You don't get the audit trails that you do with running allocations. So, you know, if you're right now looking at a really difficult, confusing, frustrating process of running allocations, this is a tool that can really help you. Again, we have visibility into what's happening. It's not manually intensive. Business users can go in, build their rules, and run their rules and see the results. Super simple. What about profitability? Do you know who your most profitable customers are, your most profitable products? Are you expending your dollars and your resources on profitable situations, or are you not? So this is a great tool to figure all of that out. So wrapping up again, profitability, cost management in the cloud supports simple to complex allocation requirements. It is user-driven profitability and cost management. So business users are able to go in, create their rules, run their rules. So you can build in any rank and order that you want to for execution of your rules. You can drill in for details. Comprehensive audit trails are available. And most important, of course, is that actionable intelligence, right? I can see what's going on in my business. I can take action. And it's part of the Oracle EPM Enterprise license. All right. Finally, I just want to wrap up and remind you that we do have a few videos out there on epm.bi/videos. We talk about just about everything EPM related. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, please do so. Also, we have the whole series of Look Smarter Than You Are, and the new OAC Look Smarter Than You Are book is out as well. So please take advantage of that. And finally, upcoming webcasts on September 11th, we have What is Oracle Strategic Modeling? On September 18th, What is Oracle Account Reconciliation? On the 25th, we have Oracle Data Visualization. And on the 2nd of October, Oracle Enterprise Data Management. And on the 9th, Oracle Narrative Reporting. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm going to stop sharing my desktop for just a minute and see if there are any questions. It doesn't look like there are any questions at the moment. So I thank everyone very much for joining us today. And please tune in again. Take care, everybody. Bye, guys.